So 300 to 400,000, he's making 20 to 25,000 per week off of that route.
And a percentage of that would say at the time would probably be around 22% that he would get from that sale per week.
Talk to the viewers that are going to see this, going to do bread routes. What are common mistakes they should avoid?
When you talk to them and selling the route and tell you, I'm throwing the truck in as well, that person understands what it is. Us talking about this right now is phenomenal because so many people will get this information and didn't realize that it was possible for them to do it.
Give me an overview of kind of your story from there, your story of a bread route, then also the business model and kind of how that works.
So my name is Jerome. A little bit about my introduction to the bread route. This is how it happened for me. My partner actually that I'm partners with now, he actually was doing it for the last 20 years or more than 20 years. And at some point, he told me when a route was available, and being associated with him for a lifetime since we were young, I just decided, okay, let me look into it and see what it was about. At the time, I was done doing what I was previously doing, figured it was time for a transition, and I looked into it, checked it out. It was a physical job, and the reason that I thought I would be able to do it was because the physicality and the numbers all checked out, worked out, and I didn't want it to be a lag in the lifestyle that I was used to and the way that I was living, and the transition seemed like it would fit. So for me, it was a easy transition as far as leaving what I was doing previously. Once I decided to make that transition, it was a whole new world because I didn't understand what I was getting into. It was bread, and everyone looks at bread as just being something easy to do, or it's just, you see bread all the time. But what happened for me was walking into the depot for the first time. It's kind of overwhelming seeing thousands and thousands of pieces of bread and hundreds of stacks of bread. The business end of it was, luckily for me, and I have to give this information to people when I talk about acquiring, starting, or building a bread business. I kind of skipped the early stage because my partner already had that part done for me. I kind of walked into it. I didn't have to look for the financing. I didn't have to go through the process of the interviews with the company because he already had it established, and us being partners already in other business, it was a seamless entry. But over time, showing other people how to acquire the routes and learning the business, I've gotten more in detail to the business aspects of it. So for me, it was easier than I would say for anyone else starting out, unless they have someone in the business already that would kind of grandfather them in. And now I'm telling you a story that's, more than a decade and a half old, but 20 something years ago, the process has changed to what it is now in 2024. So.
Well, so you mentioned a few words there. You mentioned depot and you mentioned your partner talking to the company. So it sounds like the business model is based around a distribution model where these companies are hiring distributors to go in and put their product out. Is that accurate?
That's very accurate. So what we like to call ourselves is independent operators, or IOs. And what happens is when you buy a bread route or you start working for a company that does, there's different models. So I'll go with mine, the IO, independent operator. You buy a bread route, you own the bread route, you service the stores, you buy from the company. Once you leave the depot, which is where you would go to load your truck, when you leave that night, every night we load our trucks. We have a load sheet. We go through our load, make sure we have everything that they're saying that they're selling us. Once we sign off on it, we bought that bread for that night. We own it. Once we deliver it, depending on who we deliver it to, unless you have a cash stop, some of them are settlement through the company, and then we receive a settlement check later on in the month. It could be 2 months later. It could be 3 weeks later, different time frames with different companies.
Who are these companies and where do we find them? Are we just going to Google, doing a search by bread route, which would be the first place for a lot of individuals? Give me some names of these companies.
The biggest we would say would be Bimbo, Pepperidge Farm, Khaleesi, and Flowers. Those would be the big boys right there, or the big girls. Those would be the biggest companies. Khaleesi, Flowers, Bimbo, and Pepperidge Farm. Different models for each one, and the price points are different Routes vary from 50 to 60,000 to 3 to 400,000, even 500,000, depending on what part of the country or the world you're in.
Does the physical location dictate your price? Because it's a great segue into, startup costs and kind of what that initial investment looks like for someone that wants to get into this type of business.
Regionally, it would definitely dictate the cost. And let's just say, for instance, we'll talk with Beanbo, meaning the company that I'm associated with. Throughout the country right now, there is a process to where they're combining the routes. On certain routes, they will deliver Entenmann's products, which are the cakes, donuts, cookies, Takis chips, and Freihofer, Arnold, Sara Lee bread, Kaiser rolls, and
Okay.
things like that. So it will be a combo. They call them combo routes.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're in a place, let's just go with, let's say, down in the South, say a Georgia, Atlanta, or in Florida or the Carolinas. I'll say Orlando because I'm familiar with this because I ran into this in Orlando a couple years ago. There was a guy who had a route that he only had two stores, a Walmart and a Target, but he had everything that the company delivers on his truck. He serviced two stores. The route, he said, was somewhere around $300,000 to $400,000, doing 20 to 25,000 a week.
Oh.
So, and it's and a percentage of that would say at the time would probably be around 22% that he would get from that sale per week.
So 300,000 to 400,000. He's making 20 to 25,000 per week. That sounds like the high end or the high end routes. Does it get any higher than that, or kind of what's the model as far as what can someone expect? They get a bread route as far as revenue per year. What are you looking at on average to high end?
Okay, so we'll go a low end. Let's say there was a route for 100,000. We'll
Okay.
use a small number, simple number, which isn't small, but 100,000. If you had a route for 100,000 and you did 3,600 a week, okay, so that would be 3,600 a week. You would be looking at 187,000, but you have to take the percentage off what you would have to pay. So let's just say it's 6 minus 6%. So that's like 11,000. If he did 137,000 in a year, somewhere your payment would be for, if you put 6% down on a route,
Mm-hmm.
for 100,000, you need 6,000 to put down. And that's just off of the $100,000 Beanbo route. Pepperidge is 20,000.
Okay. So you're putting down 100,000 for the route. And it's essentially what it is. It's a license for them. They have to get the kickbacks, right? The actual company, because they're giving you
Right.
the product. Right.
Yes. When you asked me about the routes, and I said combo routes,
Mm-hmm.
right now they're trying to make routes all combination with everything on the truck. The problem they're having is guys that have had routes for a long time have older contracts. So they're not agreeing to sell those routes and make them combination routes. Because of the LLCs and the contracts they sign, they want people to be incorporated. So anyone looking to start a business now in the bread business, if it was a Beanbo route, you have to be incorporated. And the contract language has changed. I can't give you all the differences in the contracts
Mm-hmm.
right now. But if you were, like you said, to Google Beanbo routes for sale and a contract, it would, you could look it up and see what it would require you to do.
Okay, just to make sure we're clear with everyone. So if you want to get into the route business, the first thing you need to do is acquire a route. You have to be incorporated. So once you get your incorporation, what do you do? We didn't clear this up. Let's go through this. Do we just go to these companies, go to their website, and there's a section where you can say, okay, sign up for a route. What other documentation are they looking at to make sure that you're qualified to actually be able to go out and put out their product?
It's an interview process. I'm not too sure with Khaleesi. Khaleesi is a company that you only could work for. They don't have routes.
Okay.
Flowers, Pepperidge Farm, and Beanbo will sell you a route, or you can buy a route from an independent owner
Okay.
through that company. You have to get cleared through the company. It is a regular interview and a contract process where they do a background check.
Okay.
And I would like to be clear with everyone. It doesn't always hinge on if something happened when you were younger, if you got arrested. As long as you don't have domestic abuse, you've assaulted anyone and things
Okay.
of that nature. So you having speeding tickets, or if you had child support, or if you had some type of issue in the past, that doesn't exclude you from owning a route. But there
Okay.
is an interview and a background check process.
So we get our route. So we pass all that. We get our route. We understand. Okay, we have one route now. Growth potential, right? Revenue streams. What revenue streams are we getting? Do we have just one revenue stream? Is just putting out the route, and or as it? Do you typically look at adding more routes to increase revenue? How does growth and scalability happen once you have a good gist of the route and putting stuff out?
Growth and scalability happens in two different ways. When you buy a route, and whatever route you buy, if you buy it independently and then you get it through the company, so to say, you have a territory. In that territory, you're able to grow the route by picking up new business on your own. You may have an area where they may open a new super Walmart, a Target, a Burger King, because we do those roles as well as far as
Mm-hmm.
our company goes. So any new business that opens in your territory becomes your business through the company. And you will be in competition with other bread vendors, but it's up to you can go out and acquire the business. A lot of vendors don't go out and sell themselves and what they say, knock on doors or, stop in and try to get more business, but you can. You can
Okay.
absolutely. You could be getting your bread from the Pepperidge guy. I could come in and make you a better offer. They could
Okay.
be unhappy and not know that they can change. So it's scalable in that way. I've known guys that have bought routes that were doing $7, $8 to $9,000 a week and got them up to $15 to $16,000 a week.
Okay. Realistically, take myself for instance.
Okay.
I get into this business. Year one, what should I realistically expect to make?
Year one, depending on the size of the route, I just gave you some numbers. Say a $10,000 route makes $10,000 a week. Say it
Hmm.
makes that much money a week. And off of that, the percentage you may make, let's just say if it was $2,000 a week that you're making, that's just the number you want to look at. And out of that, you would have to make a route payment unless you bought your route outright. You have insurance, you have gas, you have settlement requirements if it's through our company. But what the company does do, and I want to let people know this, is you get a kickback from the company for wearing their logos on your shirt, their
Okay.
hats. Your truck will get wrapped in their logo as well. So they give you a settlement credit every week towards your route. So when you're paying for settlement fees through the company for the things you use with them, is the printer, the computer, the paper, it's kind of like a flip flop. So just say you make 2,000 to 2,500 a week would be something you could look at, but that's on a small 70 to 80 to a $90,000 route. You get into your 150s, your 200s, your 300s, double that number every 100. So when I say two, you could be looking at 6,000 to 7,000 you're making a week. And there's
Okay.
guys that do make that kind of money.
Is there anyone, of course, we like, people like big numbers. Everyone likes the millionaire status. That's always a good
Yep.
thing. Anyone making seven figures, probably not just an independent operator, but who's your top people making big money in this and kind of what are they doing?
I would say high six and close to seven figures. But here's why. They have multiple routes
Okay.
and maybe they work one of them, someone works the other two, or they work one and someone works the other one. But everything I just said about scaling a business and scaling that route up, they've
Hmm.
done that and they've maintained it. What happens, a lot of guys they start scaling or they get to a certain point and they're on cruise control. They level out. They don't
Hmm.
look to build anymore. Some people are in ideal areas. I'll give you a for instance. And where I'm located, there is no major arena. But in some cities, you may be in one of them, there's a football arena, a
Yep.
basketball arena, a
Hmm.
baseball arena. Some
Hmm.
of these guys have those arenas. Just say baseball. There's
Hmm.
160 games, 80 of them, 162 games, 81 of them are home games. So that's
Hmm.
81 games they got to do. You have that route.
Right. That makes
So,
perfect sense.
yeah, do you need to have a mom and pop gas station if you're bringing bread to the stadium every week? No.
Right.
So that's what happens. So to answer your question, yes, you can get high six figures and sometimes seven, depending on where you're located. Which brings me back to those 3, 4, $500,000 routes. They're out
Right.
there.
So that's a great point. So it's kind of like real estate location, and though I would assume those routes are, if you're getting this from this company, those are hard to get. Like because I'm in Atlanta, like you mentioned, And where I stay, the stadiums, you have the basketball stadium right next to the football stadium, right?
Absolutely.
And now they're both in season, right? So I can imagine that routes this area is probably already $300,000 or $400,000 because it's already guaranteed income, right?
Guaranteed.
Guaranteed, but that's I mean, how many of those routes actually exist, and how many people have the income to actually go and get that route? So if you're looking at my hometown of Missouri, you're looking at those mom and pop type shops.
Okay.
So what are you weighing? What are you weighing to say, hey, if I get this route, I know I'm gonna make this, but it's really no benefit. What's the benefit of getting the mom and pop route? Which brings me back to like, why are you starting a bread route in the first place? You have to have some an unfair advantage to start. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Well, and that's a great way to look at it. But what I would say is this: as much as it seems like it's impossible, the person that's doing that route is going to get to a point where they're either going to want someone to work it, or they're going to say, okay, I'm going to sell this and go buy two other routes, or one more, or a route, a smaller one. I'm going to downsize, because that's what I've seen happen since I've been doing this. So we don't have a major sports team, and I'm in Connecticut. So we do have
Mm-hmm.
the Yukon Huskies.
Right.
College team is very good.
Mm-hmm.
Right next to the XL Center where the men and the women play is the Dunkin' Donuts Center where the minor league baseball team is. And because we don't have a major baseball team, the minor league baseball team does great.
Mm-hmm.
So with the XL Center, you have the men, the women, they have hockey. So that's a draw. But all around that territory is everything else. So
Mm-hmm.
it's still money to be made. Even if you don't have the arena, there's the territory is so vast. Again, my partner has 7 Stop and Shops, which are the supermarkets
Okay.
services. So, and that's just his territory. So
Okay.
it's like down in the South, like a Publix.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
they're everywhere.
Yep.
I mean, miles. They're only a few miles from one Publix to the next,
Mm-hmm.
from a small one to a major. The opportunity is there. And it used to be a best kept secret. Now everyone's sharing the information. Us talking about this right now is phenomenal, because so many people will get this information and didn't realize that it was possible for them to do it.
Yeah, I never until I saw that, and when I reached out to you and I saw that post on Reddit about someone buying a bread route, never even knew this existed. This was
Right.
even a thought, which is great. So let's get a little bit. We already talked about the customer and kind of who your customers are and kind of what you're getting. That's kind of known through the route. Let's talk about. I love metrics, KPIs, right? Metrics to know that you're doing well. I'm pretty sure there are individuals that have gotten these that have done really well. People that have done not so well. What's a great indicator to know to say, okay, I'm doing really well with this route.
One of the indicators that I would say to let you know you're doing well, when you first, it's kind of it's a big answer, but I'm gonna give you the shortest version of it. When I first started, it was difficult because the learning curve is so big. When we first start doing the bread, it's very, very detailed, and it's a tedious thing. The metric that I would use is, if you can get up every day at 2 in the morning, make it to the depot, do the route, no matter how long it takes you, and get up the next day consecutively, continuously, and stick with it, you can do it. The hardest thing is consistently getting up at 2 in the morning. And for me, it was 12:31 in the morning to make it to the depot to load my truck and learn the process, because a lot of the early part is sticking with it.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get past the first 6 months, 5, 6 months of sticking to it,
Mm-hmm.
you can do it. You can
Okay.
do it. The other part that is frustrating, and I like to let people know this: if you buy a route and you start a bread business, give yourself some room with your overhead as far as your finances, because
Okay.
things happen to the truck. That's your biggest asset when you're doing the bread. Your body first, because you're physically doing the work, but the
Right.
truck, without the truck, you can't do anything. And if your
So.
transmission goes, the truck breaks
Mm-hmm.
down, now you have to rent a truck. And if you're financing a route, you still have to make your route payment. And if you had to buy a truck, you got to make your truck payment. That the truck's broken down and now you have to get a rental. So you need that overhead. The preparation is key. And a lot of people go all in. And I put everything I've had into this. I spent all my money. I would tell everyone and anyone, don't spend all of your money. Keep a cushion.
Right, and you brought something up that we didn't touch on, but we would love to touch on it too. You mentioned your truck. That's a hidden cost. That well might not be a hidden cost, but what are some hidden costs outside of that that we want to take a look at outside of your transmission? What are those other costs you might run into?
So the truck is a hidden cost, and it isn't.
Okay.
Because it works two ways. It would be ideal if someone's looking for a route and they find one with a truck involved. That would be amazing. As far as
Wow,
those,
trucks come with routes.
yes, trucks come with routes.
Okay.
Think about it. I'm 70 years old, or I'm 65, or I'm
Okay.
60, and I want to get out of this business. What do I need a box truck for if I'm selling the route?
Right. 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 Okay.
Now,
Okay. Okay.
some guys treat their assets differently. I'm selling the route and I'm selling the truck separately.
Right.
What you will find if someone's looking for a route, and I'm telling this to the people watching, what you will find is if you go to buy a route and the person, when you talk to them, is selling the route and tell you, I'm throwing the truck in as well, I'm just
Hmm.
ready to get out, you want to ask more questions. That person understands what it is.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Right.
when you
Right.
got the person that's just saying, well, I'm selling the route and the truck is separate too, they just want to make money.
Hmm.
And I get it. It's not a bad thing. But someone who's really looking for someone to succeed in the business is going to try to set you up the right way.
Okay.
That's just my understanding over time.
No, that's great, and it brought up another question. You mentioned how you got into a little bit of small business acquisition, which is a conversation I've been having a lot. And you said you're going to look for these routes, and we had a conversation just a minute ago about going to these companies, but these routes that these owners that have already bought now they're looking to offload because they are getting up in age, they are retiring. Where are you going? Is there a website you're looking at? How do you find these individuals that already have these routes? Where are you going to find these to get that type of deal flow?
There are a few different places. The companies I previously mentioned, Pepperidge Farm, Khaleesi, Beanbo, and Flowers, outside of Khaleesi, which again, they only hire, they don't sell individual routes, but
Hmm.
they do piecework, meaning if you work for the company, you get percentage off of how much you sell. So they're
Hmm.
not a bad choice. And I know someone who works with them. Those companies on all of those websites have the information about routes that may be for sale. There are also there's a Flowers independent operators group on Facebook. There's a Beanbo independent operators group on Facebook, and there is a Pepperidge Farm independent operators group on Facebook as well. The information is shared within those groups. I also have a group. It's called Real Bread Life. Actually, we're still growing it. We don't do so much about the selling of routes. I'm just in right now building a community to share the information.
Okay.
Anyone who emails me, messages me, or asks the question, I put them in contact with routes that I do know are for sale in the Northeast.
Okay. So a few closing questions here. And one is going to be, and I'll leave this up to you. You have a new individual that's going to see this. They're going to, maybe get excited at a new business opportunity. But they're always, you've been in the game for a long time. I think you said 14 years you've been doing this, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
Common mistakes. I'll leave this as the last one. Talk to the viewers that are going to see this, going to do bread routes. What are common mistakes they should avoid?
The best way I could say common mistakes is cutting corners. Don't cut corners. Neglecting your stores. When I say neglecting your stores, the way we make money when delivering bread is the rotation of the bread, fresh to old, old to fresh. And you have to rotate your bread and your product and presentation. Common mistakes are sloppy presentation, delayed delivery, and neglecting your stops.
Mm-hmm.
And also a lack of communication between you and the service, the person you're servicing, whether it be convalescent homes, group homes, as I said, arenas, restaurants, or major box stores like your Targets, your Walmarts, your BJ's, or your Publix, your supermarkets. Communication, lack of proper communication, neglect, and not taking it serious and treating it like a business would be very big mistake. That's just what I've learned over the years. And I'm not saying it like I'm perfect, because I've had issues where I've dealt with all those things. As starting out and not understanding my service pattern, not knowing your service pattern as far as your route is concerned, will give you'll see the results in your settlement, meaning your money.
We'll end with this. I know I said last question, but this one came to my
It's
mind when
all
you were
fine.
mentioning something. Last question for sure. I want to start bread route. Give me 3 steps. What are the 3 steps? Three simple steps. I want to start a bread route. What do we do?
Want to start a bread route? 3 steps to start a bread route. Watch Real Bread Life videos on YouTube.
For sure.
Start right there. Watch a bunch of Real Bread Life videos on YouTube. Okay. I say that being sincere because there are some videos where you'll see mountains of bread
Hmm.
and you will get an idea of what it entails. And outside of that, not being funny, do your research and your homework. Find out in your territory or your area that you're looking to buy a bread route in, how well they're doing. Check
Hmm.
Pepperidge Farm, check Flowers, and check Bimbo, Bimbo. Pepperidge Farm, just like it sounds, and Flowers, just like it sounds. You want to check the 3 companies, check your territory or area that you're looking in, find out what they're doing. This is all public information on all of their websites.
Okay.
Check their sales, check what routes are for sale. Okay, let me say it this way. Check all 3 company websites. Find out what routes are for sale on all 3 company websites. Then contact the person where it says the contact information and tell them you're inquiring about those the routes from each company, and get the information. Then look at the numbers and then make a decision as to which one you think might be best for you. And if you have a question, email me at jugg@realbreadlife.com and I will help you out.